In nature, we rarely find isolated single individuals of any species. Majority of them live in groups in a well-defined geographical area. This whole number of people or inhabitants living in a particular geographical area represents population figure of that species. So, a population is the collection of interbreeding organisms of a particular species. Population of every species has certain attributes that an individual organism does not have. In our today's class, we will study about such attributes.
Hello students, welcome to today's class where we will discuss about the population attributes. You know, when we talk about attributes of population, what exactly do we mean? Actually, an attribute is a qualitative characteristic that a unit of a population or whole population represents. There is a slight difference when it is being considered at an individual level or at population level. For example, an individual may have births and deaths, but a population has birth rates and death rates. In a population, these rates refer to per capita births and deaths respectively. Before discussing about the topic, let me share the learning objectives of today's module.
On completion of this topic, learners will be able to define population density and population growth, discuss population growth models, exponential and logistic, explain population interactions like predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, Ammensalism, mutualism.
The size of the population tells us a lot about its status in the habitat. Size of a population of any species is the outcome of its competition with another species, the impact of a predator or the effect of a pesticide application. As far as the size of a population is concerned, that could be as low as less than 10 for Siberian cranes in Bharatpur wetlands in any year, or go into millions for Chlamydomonas in a pond. Total number is generally the measure of population density. Anyhow, let me tell you the formula to measure population density. Population density is equal to total population of a particular species in an area divided by total geographical area of that particular locality. Let us see what are the ways to know total population of species.
Usually, a sample or unit of population is good enough to measure its total population in that particular region. For instance, the number of fish caught per trap will help us to know population density in a water body. Sometimes we estimate the population sizes indirectly without actually counting them or seeing them. The tiger census in our national parks and tiger reserves is often based on pug marks and fecal pellets. Yes, one thing is true, that counting of some species is very important for planning as well as their preservation.
किसी स्पीशीज ਦੀ ਪੋਪੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਸਾਈਜ਼ ਕੋਈ ਸਟੈਟਿਕ ਪੈਰਾਮੀਟਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਦਲਾਵ ਕਈ ਫੈਕਟਰਸ ਤੇ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਫੂਡ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ, ਪ੍ਰੀਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਅਤੇ ਵੈਦਰ ਐਕਸਟ੍ਰੀਮਸ। The density of a population in a given habitat during a given period depends on 4 basic factors, 2 of which are natality and immigration, which contribute an increase in population density, whereas the other 2, mortality and emigration, will cause a decrease in population density. See how we can define these factors. Natality refers to the number of births during a given period in the population that are added to the initial density. Mortality is the number of deaths in the population during a given period. Immigration is the number of individuals of the same species that have come into the habitat from elsewhere during the time period under consideration. Emigration is the number of individuals of the population who left the habitat and gone elsewhere during the time period under consideration. Effect of all these factors will lead to either increase or decrease in population density. Under normal conditions, births and deaths are the most important factors influencing population density. The other 2 factors, immigration and emigration, rarely affect population density. Population growth. This change in population leads to coin new term known as population growth. This growth is controlled by the rate at which new individuals are added to the population, means the birth rate, and the rate at which individuals leave the population, means the death rate. There are certain models by using them growth of a population along with time can be depicted. 2 types of growth models are usually used as far population growth is concerned: exponential and logistic. Exponential growth, logistic growth. So let us start from the exponential growth. If a population has a constant birth rate through time and is never limited by food or disease, it shows exponential growth. Any species growing exponentially under unlimited resource conditions can reach enormous population densities in a short time. This curve of exponential growth tells us that no matter how small the initial population, any growth rate will lead to exponential increase, means growth will take place at an increasingly faster rate. This model suggests that when the resources, means food and space, are available, unchecked growth of a population takes place. Or we may say that when resources in the habitat are unlimited, each species has the ability to reproduce fully and its natural potential to grow in number. I hope you have understood the exponential growth. Let us get familiar with logistic growth. A population growing in a habitat with limited resources show initially a lag phase, followed by phases of acceleration and deceleration, and finally an asymptotic condition. This asymptotic condition arises when the population density reaches the carrying capacity of that particular geographical area. This type of population growth is also known as Verhulst-Pearl logistic growth. Population interactions. ਕੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਧਰਤੀ ਦੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਹੈਬਿਟੈਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਸਪੀਸ਼ੀਜ਼ ਇਕੱਲੀ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ? ਨਹੀਂ। ਈਵਨ ਅ ਪਲਾਂਟ ਸਪੀਸ਼ੀਜ਼ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ ਭੋਜਨ ਆਪ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਮਿੱਟੀ ਦੇ ਆਰਗੈਨਿਕ ਮੈਟਰ ਨੂੰ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਅਤੇ ਇਨਆਰਗੈਨਿਕ ਨਿਊਟ੍ਰੀਐਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਐਬਜ਼ੌਰਪਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਸੋਇਲ ਮਾਈਕਰੋਬਸ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਪਲਾਂਟਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੋਲੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੀ ਐਨੀਮਲਸ ਮਹੱਤਵਪੂਰਨ ਰੋਲ ਨਿਭਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇੱਥੇ ਇਹ ਸਪਸ਼ਟ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨੇਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਨੀਮਲਸ, ਪਲਾਂਟਸ ਅਤੇ ਮਾਈਕਰੋਬਸ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ ਅਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਾਇਓਲੋਜੀਕਲ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੇ ਹਨ। ਛੋਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਛੋਟੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਕਈ ਸਾਰੇ ਅਨਿਖੜਵੇਂ ਇੰਟਰੈਕਟਿਵ ਲਿੰਕੇजेस ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਨ। These linkages could be beneficial, detrimental or neutral. Let us know more about population interactions. Predation. जरा इमेजिन करो कि ऑटोट्रॉफिक ऑर्गेनिजम्स द्वारा ਫਿਕਸਡ એનર્ਜੀ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਜੇਕਰ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਫਰ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਐਨੀਮਲਸ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਮਝ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੀਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਪਲਾਂਟਸ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਫਿਕਸਡ એનર્ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਇਰ ਟ੍ਰੋਪਿਕ ਲੈਵਲਸ ਤੱਕ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਫਰ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਵੇ ਹੈ। ਆਓ ਹੁਣ ਪ੍ਰੀਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਕੁਝ ਉਦਾਹਰਣ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ।
When we think of predator and prey, most probably it is the lion and the zebra that readily come to our mind. But a sparrow eating any seed is no less a predator. In Australia, the prickly pear cactus caused havoc by spreading rapidly into millions of hectares of land. Finally, this cactus was brought under control by introducing a moth as predator in the country. Some species of insects and frogs are so well colored to get camouflaged with the background, and predators find them difficult to attack. There is an interesting example of such a case where the monarch butterfly is highly distasteful to its predator bird because of a special chemical present in its body. For plants, herbivorous animals are the predators. Have you heard the term Phytophagus? This term is used for insects which feed on plants' sap or other parts of a plant. The problem of predators' attack is more for plants because, unlike animals, they cannot run away from their predators. To protect themselves, plants have evolved their own ways, like a variety of morphological and chemical defenses against herbivores. Thorns on acacia and spines on cactus are the most common morphological means of defense. Another example where Calotropis produces a highly poisonous chemical and is never fed by any cattle. Thus, plants cannot move but defend themselves by such mechanisms only.
So students, here we can say that predators keep prey population under control and get benefited. Predators also help in maintaining species diversity in a community. How? Simply by reducing the intensity of competition among existing prey species in a particular geographical area. If a predator is too efficient and overexploits its prey, then the prey might become extinct. Because of extinction of prey, the predator may also become extinct due to the lack of food. Now let us know about competition. It is not only that competition occurs among closely related species for the same resources, unrelated species also compete for the same resource. For example, flamingos visiting some shallow South American lakes and permanent resident fishes compete for their common food, the zooplankton in the lake. Secondly, resources may not be the only limiting factor for competition to occur. Sometimes, even feeding efficiency of one species might be reduced due to the presence of the other species, even if resources means food and space are abundant. Let us see.
This is a fact that when resources are limited the competitively superior species will eventually eliminate the other species, like when goats were introduced on the Galapagos Island, the Abingdon tortoise in islands became extinct within a decade. Reason could be a greater browsing efficiency of the goats. There is another interesting term regarding competition in nature comes from what is called competitive release. A species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area because of the presence of some other competitively superior species. But as soon as this competitively superior species is removed, the species whose distribution was restricted expand dramatically in the same area. Gause's competitive exclusion principle states that two closely related species competing for the same resources cannot coexist indefinitely, and the competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. This may be true only when resources are limited, but not otherwise.
More recent studies by different scientists put their different views about competition. While they do not rule out the occurrence of interspecific competition in nature, but according to their studies, species facing competition might evolve some mechanism which help them to coexist with their competing species rather than elimination of one of them. One such mechanism is resource partitioning. If two species compete for the same resource, they could avoid competition by choosing, for instance, different times for feeding or changed way of searching for food. If two species compete for the same resource, they could avoid competition by choosing, for instance, different times for feeding or different foraging patterns. I hope it is clear to you. Now let us know about parasitism.
During parasitism, one organism does free lodging and stay on other organism. So, a parasite is an organism that grows, feeds and shelters in or on a different organism while contributing nothing to the survival of its host. Basically, life cycles of parasites are often very complex. It may involve one or two intermediate hosts or vectors to facilitate parasitism of its primary host. For example, human liver fluke depends on two intermediate hosts to complete its life cycle. One is snail and the other is a fish. Malarial parasite needs mosquito as vector to reach many more hosts. Malarial parasites are transmitted from one person to another by the female Anopheles mosquito. Plasmodium develops in the gut of the mosquito and is passed on in the saliva of an infected insect each time it takes a new blood meal.
Parasitism. There are more than 1,000 types of parasites take shelter in the body of one person. But do you think that an ideal parasite should be able to flourish within the host without harming it? If it was so, then why didn't natural selection lead to the evolution of such totally harmless parasites? Parasites can feed either on external surface or inside the body of host. Parasites that feed on the external surface of the host organism are called ectoparasites, whereas parasites that live inside the host body are known as endoparasites. Let us see some examples.
The most familiar examples of ectoparasites are the lice on humans and ticks and bugs on dogs and cats. Many marine fishes are used as host by copepods. These copepods are a group of small crustaceans found in the sea. Petromyzon means sea lamprey attaches itself to the larger fish, such as shark, by the sucking action of its buccal funnel. It makes a hole in the host's body and sucks the blood. Cuscata, a parasitic plant, derives its nutrition from the host plant, which it parasitizes on. Some examples of endoparasite are Taenia, Ascaris, Entamoeba, etc. live in the intestine of man. Taenia causes teniasis, Ascaris causes ascariasis, and similarly, amoeba causes amoebic dysentery.
Brood parasitism in birds is a fascinating example of parasitism. Birds are well known for their parental care, patiently incubating their eggs and then bringing food to their young ones until they are old enough to look after themselves. However, certain birds lay their eggs in the nests of other birds and do not provide any parental care for their own offspring. For example, quail lays eggs in crow's nest. This way, very interesting relationship develops between hosts and parasites. After the parasitism, let us explore about commensalism, the interaction in which one species gets benefited and the other remains unaffected is known as commensalism. Let us clarify through an example.
The cattle egret and grazing cattle in close association, a sight you are most likely to catch if you live in farmed rural areas. When cattle grazes on the field, its movement causes disturbance in the field and thus insects are stirred up. The cattle egrets, following the livestock, catch and feed upon them. The egrets benefit from this relationship because the livestock have helped them find their meals, while the cattle are typically unaffected by it. Another example is the interaction between sea anemone and clownfish. The fish gets protection from predators, would stay away from swinging tentacles, but sea anemone does not get any benefit by allowing the clownfish to stay on it.
Ammensalism. Ammensalism is an interaction between two living individuals of different species in which one species is harmed whereas other species remain unaffected. Most important example is that of penicillium and bacteria. The bread mold penicillium secrete an antibiotic penicillin that kills bacteria. Now let us explore about mutualism. Mutualism is a type of interaction which confers benefits on both the interacting species. Let us see some examples.
Lichens represent an intimate mutualistic relationship between a fungus and photosynthesizing algae or cyanobacteria. The fungus provides water, minerals and shelter to alga. The alga manufactures food not only for itself but also for the fungus. Similarly, the mycorrhizae are associations between fungi and the roots of higher plants. The fungi help the plant in the absorption of essential nutrients from the soil, while the plant in turn provides the fungi with energy-yielding carbohydrates. Plants need the help of animals for pollinating as well as dispersing the seeds on distant places. Animals in turn get juicy nectar and nutritious fruits. The wasp pollinates the fig inflorescence while searching for suitable egg-laying sites. In return for the favor of pollination, the fig offers the wasp some of its developing seeds as food for the developing wasp larvae.
I hope now you are well familiar with the population attributes. Let us just list the concepts which we have learnt in today's class. Population density, which we learnt to calculate by the formula. Population density is equal to total population of a particular species in an area divided by total geographical area of that particular locality. We also learnt that population density is affected by 4 factors: natality and mortality, immigration and emigration. Next thing we learnt is population growth. Then 2 models depicting growth pattern of population: exponential growth and logistic growth pattern. Also, we discussed many types of population interactions like predation, competition, parasitism, commensalism, ammensalism, mutualism, along with examples of each. Before winding up the lesson, here is a quick test for you to find out how much you have actually absorbed. Listen carefully and fill the blank space in each sentence. The first sentence is, dash is a type of interaction which confers benefits on both the interacting species. The answer is, mutualism is a type of interaction which confers benefits on both the interacting species. The next question is, the interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor benefited is known as dash. And the complete sentence is, the interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed nor benefited is known as commensalism. The next question is, parasites that feed on the external surface of the host organism are called dash. The answer is, parasites that feed on the external surface of the host organism are called ectoparasites. The next question is, the type of interaction where one species is harmed whereas the other is unaffected is known as dash. The answer is, the type of interaction where one species is harmed whereas the other is unaffected is known as ammensalism. Fill in the next sentence. Dash refers to the number of births during a given period in the population. The answer is, natality refers to the number of births during a given period in the population. One last question. Identify the type of growth curves shown here. Yes, this is exponential growth curve, whereas this curve depicts logistic type of growth. ਮੈਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਲੈਸਨ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਉਨਾ ਹੀ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ। ਅਗਲੀ ਕਲਾਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਵੇਂ ਵਿਸ਼ੇ ਨਾਲ ਫਿਰ ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ। ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਲਈ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਦਿਓ। ਧਿਆਨ ਦੇਣ ਲਈ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।